Let's go to another video, but first subscribe and leave a like to strengthen the channel. Now, let's go.
Little Kibbo could no longer move. He had fallen onto his side between the roots of a century-old fig tree, his eyes half closed, his breathing coming out in small, irregular gasps, as if each one could be the last. He was only 4 months old. He was still nursing. He still slept curled against his mother's chest every night, his tiny fingers gripping her fur, as if the world would end if he let go. And now the world was truly ending. Zara realized something was wrong even before she saw her son fall. She sensed a different smell in the air, that subtle change mothers know before any explanation. When she turned around, Kibbo was stiff, his small arms drawn tight against his chest, his mouth slightly open without making a sound. Beside him, already disappearing among the leaves, a dark-scaled snake vanished, as if it had never existed. Zara picked him up in her arms. She held him tight. She called out with that guttural, low, urgent sound that gorillas use when they need to wake their young from a deep sleep. But Kibbo did not respond. His little body was too limp, too warm. She had already lost one before. 2 years earlier, an unnamed illness had taken her first infant in 3 days. She carried the body for 4 days without being able to let go. The researchers at the base camp watched from a distance, without interfering, respecting the grief of a mother that the silence of the forest could not console. One of them was Elias Mwangi. Elias was spending his 10th season in Bwindi National Park, following Zara's group. He had seen her grow, lose, endure. He knew the name of every member of that group, the way he knew the names of his neighbor's children. There was something about that gorilla he had never been able to properly name, but that he always recognized whenever his eyes met hers through the brush. At that moment, he was less than 300 meters away, checking data on the laptop inside the Jeep, when the radio in his pocket crackled. It was monitoring camera number 7. What it had recorded in the previous 40 seconds was something Elias had never imagined seeing in 20 years in the field. And what Zara was about to do would be even harder to believe. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. And tell us which city or country you're watching from right now. Elias opened the Jeep door before the video had even finished. Camera number 7 had been installed in a tree 200 meters from the group's usual resting spot. It had been placed there to record nighttime behaviors, those hours when the researchers slept and the forest continued its life without witnesses. None of the footage captured until then had required him to run out. This one did. In the video, Zara appeared with her back to the camera, Kibbo hanging from her chest with his arms dangling at his sides, a sign any primatologist would recognize as critical. The infant had no muscle tone. He did not respond to his mother's touch. He was alive, but for how long, no one could say. What came next was what made Elias stop breathing for 3 seconds. Zara turned in the direction of the camp. It was not a random movement. It was not the kind of shifting a gorilla makes when nervous and pacing in circles. It was deliberate. She looked at the dense forest in front of her, then at her son, then back at the forest, and chose the path that led directly to the humans. Elias had a clear protocol for situations of unplanned contact with the group. Maintain distance. Do not interfere. Document. In 12 years working with mountain gorillas, he had never broken that protocol a single time, not even when the temptation was enormous and instinct shouted louder than any manual. But there was something he had never told any colleague, any supervisor, any university ethics committee. 3 years earlier, his son Tobias had died in a hospital in Nairobi. 17 years old, a snake bite during a late afternoon hike, and the anti-venom arrived too late. Elias was 200 kilometers away when he received the call. He did not arrive in time. He never did. Since then, he carried polyvalent anti-venom on every outing, even when protocol did not require it, and his colleagues thought it was excessive. A silent promise he made to himself every morning before entering the forest. When Zara emerged from the trees carrying Kibbo, and stopped 6 meters from the Jeep, her eyes fixed on his. Elias understood that that gorilla had done something he would still try to explain for years, inside and outside the laboratory. She had chosen to trust, and that choice was going to cost dearly for both of them. Elias did not move immediately. He stood still with his hand on the open Jeep door handle, the warm forest wind hitting his face, looking at Zara the same way she looked at him, with a mixture of fear and something that had no proper name in Portuguese or in any language he knew. She was 6 meters away. For an adult female mountain gorilla, that was a distance that could become zero in less than 2 seconds if she decided he was a threat. But she did not advance. She remained still, holding Kibbo firmly against her chest, waiting. Elias took a deep breath and did something that 12 long years of training had told him not to do. He stepped out of the Jeep. He lowered his body slowly, almost bending his knees to the height of Zara's hips, so as not to appear bigger or more threatening than he was. He looked away from her. Direct eye contact with gorillas can be read as a challenge, and began to move sideways, slowly, in an arc, as if he were passing by her with no intention at all. A technique he taught to novice volunteers and had never needed to use himself in a real moment of tension. With each step, he assessed Kibbo out of the corner of his eye. The infant's head was tilted back, his lips slightly bluish. Hemotoxic envenomation, the dark-scaled snake that Zara had described through its own escape, disappearing among the fig tree roots, was almost certainly a horned viper, common at that altitude, with venom that attacks blood clotting. Elias knew what that meant. Every minute counted. After 2 hours, the chances of full reversal dropped by half. He had arrived with 1 hour and 40 minutes left before that limit. Without taking his eyes off the ground, he opened his field bag with slow, precise movements. The polyvalent anti-venom was in the left side compartment, where it always was, since the day he had reorganized the entire bag in a hotel room in Nairobi, sitting on the edge of the bed 3 weeks after Tobias's funeral. When Elias raised a syringe, Zara did not step back. She leaned her body slightly forward, as if offering her son. And it was at that exact moment that the camp camera recorded a second impossible image, this time with a fully awake human witness inside the frame. The needle entered Kibbo's neck muscle at 7:14 a.m. Elias knew the exact time because he looked at his watch at the precise moment he pressed the plunger, an involuntary reflex, as if some part of him needed to record that second forever. The infant did not react to the injection. He was too weak even for that. But Zara felt it. A tremor ran through her body, her shoulders tightening, her eyes fixed on Elias's face with an intensity he had never seen in any animal. She did not step back. She did not attack. She simply watched. Elias worked in silence for the next 20 minutes, monitoring Kibbo's breathing, checking his mucous membranes, counting his heartbeat with 2 fingers carefully pressed against the infant's fragile neck. Zara remained motionless beside him the entire time, less than a meter away, the weight of her own body swaying slightly back and forth the way gorillas do when they are processing something they do not yet fully understand.
I did a lot of research to bring you this story, so the only thing I ask in return is your thumbs up and that you subscribe to support the channel. And tell me something, what do you think of the story so far? Write it down below, along with your city.
But have chosen not to interrupt. Then Elias's radio exploded with sound. It was Dr. Amara Osei, the scientific coordinator of the field program. Her voice came through dry, direct, leaving no room for interpretation. She had seen the live transmission from the camp camera. A team was on its way. Elias was to step back immediately, maintain a safe distance, and await protocol. Direct physical contact with a non-habituated wild animal was a serious violation of park regulations. There would be formal consequences. Elias turned off the radio, not because he did not respect Amara. He did. But Kibbo was beginning to show the first signs of responding to the antivenom. His mucous membranes were turning to pink, his breathing coming with less effort, and moving anything at that moment would undo in 30 seconds what the last 20 minutes had built. When the team arrived 40 minutes later, they found a scene none of them knew how to describe in the report without it sounding like fiction. Elias sitting on the ground, notebook on his lap, recording data. Kibbo asleep in Zara's arms, breathing steadily, and Zara with one hand spread flat on the ground, less than 15 centimeters from Elias's boot, as if she were marking territory around him. Not to keep him trapped, to keep him safe. Amara stood at the edge of the clearing for a long, tense moment before speaking. When she finally opened her mouth, what came out was not the warning everyone expected. It was a question. Amara's question was simple. How long do you think she had been watching you before today? Elias did not answer immediately. He kept looking at Zara, who was now slowly leaning back against the nearest trunk, Kibbo awake and clinging to her fur with small, firm fingers, the same fingers that hours earlier could not hold onto anything. The infant's breathing was steady. His eyes were open. He was alive. Years, Elias finally said. She had been watching me for years. No committee punished Elias. No report was filed as a violation. What happened in that clearing in Bwindi National Park was treated, in the months that followed, as what it was, an unprecedented event in the history of primatology. A wild gorilla had actively sought human help to save her infant. She had crossed the oldest boundary in the world, the one that separates the wild from the civilized, because love made her believe that on the other side there was something trustworthy. Amara turned the case into a program of listening, not intervention. Additional cameras were installed. Zara's group began to be followed with a different kind of attention, more humble, as if the researchers had finally understood that perhaps they were not the only ones studying someone. Kibbo turned 4 months later, healthy and restless. He climbed everything. He bit what he should not. He caused small chaos that made Zara huff with that heavy patience only mothers know. Elias remained in the field. He continued carrying the anti-venom in the left side pocket of his bag. But something had changed in him, a lightness he had not felt since before Nairobi, since before the call that came too late. One afternoon in March, while recording data from a distance, he saw Zara stop, turn her head in his direction, and remain still for a few seconds before continuing on her way. It was nothing, just a glance, 2 seconds at most. But Elias wrote in his notebook, in smaller handwriting than usual, almost to himself, "She knows I'm here." Sometimes, the wildest and most surprising thing that exists is not fear. It is the courage to trust someone completely different from you to save what you love most in the world. If this story touched you in any way, leave in the comments what you felt, and tell us which city or country you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos.